Imagine the surprise and fear as the morning of December 7th, 1941, turned chaotic in Pearl Harbor. The sky, once a tranquil azure, was suddenly awash with smoke and fire as Japanese fighter planes descended, their engines roaring like furious beasts. The serene morning was shattered by the deafening cacophony of exploding bombs and torpedoes, the sound echoing off the harbor's waters. The attack was as devastating as it was unexpected. The mighty battleships of the Pacific Fleet, once symbols of American naval power, were reduced to smoldering, sinking hulks. On shore, soldiers and civilians alike were caught off guard, scrambling for cover amidst the chaos and destruction. The air was filled with the acrid scent of burning oil and metal, a grim testament to the ferocity of the onslaught. It was a day of infamy, a day that would forever change the course of history. The Japanese had hoped to cripple the American Pacific Fleet, to buy themselves time to continue their expansion unopposed. But the attack had a far-reaching consequence they hadn't anticipated. It was a catalyst, a spark that ignited the American spirit and pulled the United States from the sidelines into the global conflict that was World War II. Overnight, America transformed. Factories that once produced cars and household appliances were retooled for the production of tanks and airplanes. Men and women across the country rallied, ready to do their part in the fight for freedom. The once divided nation stood united, their resolve hardened by the destruction in Pearl Harbor. While the attack was a brutal blow, it was also a wake-up call. It was a harsh reminder of the world beyond America's shores, a world embroiled in conflict and war. It was a call to arms, a call that America answered with a resounding declaration of war against Japan. In the aftermath of this unexpected attack, America, once a spectator, was suddenly a key player. The stage was set, the actors in place, for one of the most significant conflicts in human history. But that's a story for another time. As the world reeled from the ferocity of the war, the Axis powers seemed unstoppable. Their might was both intimidating and formidable, with Germany, Italy, and Japan leading the charge. These nations, bound by a pact of mutual assistance, displayed a military prowess that sent shockwaves across the globe. The early successes of the Axis powers were largely due to their strategic genius and relentless aggression. Germany, under the iron-fisted rule of Adolf Hitler, employed the blitzkrieg tactics with devastating effect. This lightning war strategy, characterized by fast, concentrated attacks intended to surprise and swiftly overpower the enemy, was a game-changer. It was through these blitzkrieg assaults that the mighty German Wehrmacht swept across Europe, conquering nation after nation with ruthless efficiency. Then there was the fall of France. Once considered one of the most powerful nations in the world, France was brought to its knees in just 6 weeks. The swift and unexpected defeat of France sent a chilling message to the rest of the world. The Axis powers were not to be trifled with. Meanwhile, on the other side of the globe, Japan was making its own advances. The land of the rising sun set its eyes on the Pacific, launching a series of invasions that saw them seize control of territories far beyond their mainland. Their expansion was rapid and relentless, fueled by a desire for resources and a belief in their divine destiny to lead Asia. Yet for all their early successes, the Axis powers were not invincible. Their rapid expansion and ruthless aggression, while initially effective, began to stir a formidable resistance. Nations that had once stood by, watching the chaos unfold, began to rally. An alliance was forming, a coalition of countries united by a common goal, to halt the Axis powers' advance and restore peace to the world. But as the Axis powers spread terror across the globe, an alliance was forming. The stage was set for a clash of titans, a battle that would determine the fate of our world. The winds of war shifted on the frostbitten fields of Russia and the vast Pacific Ocean. In the depths of the Russian winter, the Battle of Stalingrad raged. This clash of titans was more than a fight for a city. It was a pivotal moment in the course of World War II. The Axis powers, led by Hitler's Germany, had been on a seemingly unstoppable march. But Stalingrad was the line in the sand, a line the Soviet Union was determined not to let them cross. Here, the Axis powers made a strategic mistake. They underestimated the resilience and resolve of the Soviet Red Army and the Russian people. They didn't account for the unforgiving Russian winter. The German troops, ill-prepared for the brutal cold, found themselves in a fight they were not equipped to win. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away in the Pacific Ocean, another crucial battle was unfolding, the Battle of Midway. Japan's Imperial Navy had planned to eliminate the United States as a strategic Pacific power, but they underestimated the tenacity of the American forces. The Battle of Midway was a gamble for both sides. However, it was the Allies who held the winning hand. They had intercepted and deciphered Japanese communications, gaining invaluable insight into their battle plans. This intelligence advantage, coupled with superior strategic maneuvers, led to a decisive victory for the United States. These two battles, happening continents apart, marked a turning of the tide in World War II. The Axis powers, once seemingly invincible, had faltered. Their strategic missteps in Stalingrad and Midway provided the Allies with opportunities to seize the initiative. In the harsh Russian winter, the Red Army began to push back, slowly turning the German advance into a retreat. In the vast expanses of the Pacific Ocean, the United States began to reclaim the territories lost to the Japanese Imperial Navy. The once invincible Axis powers had shown their vulnerability, giving hope to the Allies. These were the battles that changed the course of the war, the moments when the tide began to turn. From the beaches of Normandy to the islands of the Pacific, the end was drawing near. As we delve into this chapter of World War II, we find ourselves amidst the clamor of D-Day, June 6, 1944, a day when the tides of war began to shift. On this pivotal day, a massive armada of Allied forces launched an audacious assault on the fortified coastlines of Normandy, France. It was an operation of unprecedented scale and complexity, orchestrated with meticulous precision. Thousands of ships, aircraft, and brave men crossed the English Channel under the cover of darkness and fog, their hearts pulsating with a mix of fear and determination. They were the vanguard of freedom, their mission to breach Hitler's Atlantic Wall and liberate Europe from the grip of Nazi tyranny. The battle was fierce, the resistance formidable, but the sheer courage and tenacity of these men prevailed. They fought not just against the enemy, but against the treacherous landscape and the seemingly insurmountable odds. The beaches of Normandy transformed into the first stepping stone towards victory. Simultaneously, halfway across the world, another battle was unfolding. In the vast expanse of the Pacific, the Allied forces, chiefly the United States, embarked on a grueling island-hopping campaign. Their goal? To inch ever closer to Japan's home islands, overcoming one fortified island after another. It was a strategy that required immense sacrifice and fortitude, with battles fought under sweltering heat and against a relentless enemy. The Pacific Islands, much like the beaches of Normandy, became the stages for courage, sacrifice, and a determination that would not be quelled. Each conquered island was a step closer to victory, a beacon of hope in the seemingly endless abyss of war. The relentless push of the Allies had the Axis powers on their heels, but the war was far from over. As we continue our journey through the annals of World War II, we'll see how this global conflict reached its dramatic climax. The beginning of the end had started, but the final act was yet to be played out. In a world torn by war, the final act was as dramatic as it was devastating. The stage was set, the curtain rising on the fall of Berlin. The city, once the epicenter of the Nazi regime, was now reduced to rubble, a haunting testament to the destructive power of war. The Allied forces swept through, marking the beginning of the end for Hitler's reign. In the face of inevitable defeat, Hitler chose to meet his end in a bunker, consumed by the very war he had instigated. His suicide was a grim echo of the despair that had swept across a world at war. Meanwhile, halfway across the globe, another cataclysm was brewing. The United States, in a desperate bid to end the war, dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The devastation was unimaginable, the human cost incalculable. The world watched in stunned silence as the mushroom clouds rose, forever changing the face of warfare. The surrender of Germany and Japan followed soon after. The world watched as the Axis powers laid down their arms, marking the end of 6 long years of conflict. The war that had consumed the globe was finally over. The world sighed a collective relief as World War II ended, but it was a victory steeped in sorrow and loss. The world had changed irrevocably, scarred by a war that had touched every corner of the globe. Amid the ruins, nations came together, giving birth to the United Nations, a beacon of hope in a fractured world. Yet, the seeds of a new conflict, the Cold War, were sown in the heart of this newfound unity. As we reflect on the events of World War II, we must ask ourselves, can we ensure that such a devastating conflict never happens again?